What's up everyone, welcome to the Cookout Southern 500 Top 5 DFS Picks video for Sunday, September 4th at Darlington Raceway to kick off the start of the playoffs for the 2022 NASCAR season. This is also our second trip to the Lady in Black as well. But as always, I'm your host, Chris Pennell. You can find me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16, and this video is presented by PrizePicks. In today's video, we are going over general track strategy, how to approach the slate from a DFS perspective, and my top 5 favorite plays on the slate. Please keep in mind this video is being recorded pre-practice and qualifying, so some of my thoughts and opinions on these drivers can and probably will end up changing over the course of the weekend. So making sure you're staying up to date on what happens on the track on Saturday and Sunday will be very beneficial to you in creating fantasy NASCAR lineups this weekend. And if you want the up-to-date info analysis, you can find me on the Stokastic Live Before Lock show, where I'll break down the entire slate and answer any questions you may end up having. And as far as how we should approach this slate from a DFS perspective, dominators are going to be quite important this weekend at Darlington. And also, with this being the start of the playoffs, doesn't really change the strategy too much. Yes, there is 16 drivers, but we could still see a driver that's not in the playoffs end up doing well, for example, like a Martin Truex Jr. So I wouldn't completely rule out drivers that happen to not be in the playoffs, because they're still going to be racing as hard as they possibly can. But anyway, yes, dominators are going to be quite important here. We have nearly 400 laps this weekend, over 250 total dominator points. So yes, they're going to be quite important. You're going to have to get multiple dominators per lineup, 2 to 3. It's going to be the best way to go about it. And Darlington's a pretty unique track. It's kind of shaped like an egg. It's also right in between being a short track and an intermediate, currently sitting at 1 1/3 mile in length. So trying to find similar track types for Darlington to compare to is pretty tough. I think Dover is our best comp, but that's also a concrete surface and it's a bit shorter, but they're both steep tracks. But I think just throwing in the intermediates that we've been at this year in Auto Club, since it's also a high tire wear venue, is going to be something that's probably good to look at as far as trying to draw comps and who's going to, or at least who we think is going to be fast heading into the weekend, because I did fail to mention that Darlington is a very high tire wear track and will eat up those tires quite a bit. So Dover is another track that eats up tires quite a bit, and so does Auto Club. So if we want to look at those to compare, try to see who's been better at conserving their tires this season, it's also something you could potentially do. But moving on to the picks, we'll start with number 5 here. That's Erik Jones, $7,200 on DraftKings, 8K over on FanDuel, but he is a former winner at Darlington. This is a very good track for him. You have to keep in mind that was in JGR equipment. Bit of a downgrade these days with petty GMS, but he ran well at Dover earlier this season, where he had a 10th place finish. He also finished 3rd at Auto Club early in the year, which are the 2 higher tire wear tracks I think are pretty comparable to Darlington just because of that, as far as similar surfaces are concerned when they eat up the tires. Obviously Dover's a concrete surface compared to Darlington, but still a steep track nonetheless. And Erik Jones is also 4th in average green flag speed at the high tire wear venues as well. So while he didn't run that well at Darlington earlier this season, where he finished 25th, this is still a great track for him. I do think a top 10 is certainly in the cards here. No, he is not in the playoffs, but that does not mean he can't have a very strong showing for DFS at his price point. And moving on to number 4, it's all reliable here with Kevin Harvick, $8,500 on DraftKings, $8,800 over on FanDuel, and this is way too cheap for Harvick this weekend. I feel like everyone's going to have this same thought process here, but Kevin Harvick just seems way too cheap. I know his numbers at Darlington, we can't really look at the past too much with this new next-gen car, and obviously track history hasn't always translated this season, but he's pretty darn good at Darlington. The past several years here, he has finished in the top 5 all but one time. He has 2 wins. He's finished in the top 10, I believe, 11 straight races, averaging the most DraftKings points per race here, and an insane average finish of 3.3 and the second most dominator points. And he's also been getting the job done this season at similar track types. Finished 4th at Darlington early in the season, finished 9th at Dover, finished 7th at Auto Club, 3rd at Charlotte, 15th at Kansas wasn't great, but if you're looking at the 7 race sample size of the intermediate tracks plus a couple of the shorter tracks that I think do translate well with Darlington this weekend, no one's averaging more DraftKings points per race than Kevin Harvick. No one has a better average finish. No one has as many top 15s as him. He's tied for the most top 5s, and obviously has a win under his belt, getting the win at Michigan early in the season, although I don't think that's the most comparable track to Darlington this weekend. But he has been very consistent. He's not always the fastest driver out there, but he makes very few mistakes, and with these races, they've been a lot of attrition so far this year. Just not making mistakes has been able to get the job done, and Kevin Harvick has done just that. And moving on to number 3, it's the first Toyota we're going to talk about, but I assume they're going to have a lot of speed this weekend, but it's Christopher Bell, $8,700 on DraftKings, which I think is way too cheap, but all the way up to $10,000 over on FanDuel, but that's not going to scare me off. I think he's a great play on both sites, and he's just been fast consistently everywhere so far this year. A couple of the JGR cars, they are slow at certain tracks, but Bell's seems to be the only one that has speed just about everywhere, even including the road courses. But he has been excellent at just grabbing good finishes at all these similar tracks. 5th at Charlotte, 5th at Kansas, 6th at Darlington, 4th at Dover. I had an issue early in the season out of Club where he finished 36th, but besides that, he has been a top 10 machine. I have a hard time seeing Bell not have a strong race here. Looking at the 7-race sample size overall, he's tied for the most top 5s. He has 5 top 10s in a 6-race sample size. He's even got some dominator points mixed in there. And I'm not sure what it is, but I always have a fond memory of the 20 car here at Darlington, probably from when Erik Jones put it in victory lane several years ago. But I'm liking Bell at this price point a lot. I think you can play him on both sites, but pretty easy to get to over on DraftKings as a potential dominator, but a high finishing position upside driver as well. And before we get into our next pick, I want to talk about our sponsor, PrizePicks. They offer daily prop-based contests, and you can use promo code OSMO for a $100 first match deposit bonus. There is no sharks, optimizers, or mass entries, and 5-player lineups can add up to 10 times your entry fee. Use your knowledge of multiple sports with cross-sport entries. You can download them in the App Store, on Google Play, or play over on PrizePicks.com. You can use our free player prop tools to help you make the best selections. And the best thing about it is you can get a 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum when you sign up to make a deposit over at PrizePicks, and you'll receive your email within 24 to 48 hours after redeeming your free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. And moving on to number 2, it's a driver that has been fast the past couple months now, but just keeps running into bad luck. But I'm going to keep going back to the well here. Ross Chastain, $10,000 on DraftKings, $11K over on FanDuel. We are getting some pretty nice pricing on Chastain this week, and a pretty nice discount for a driver that I think is going to be incredibly fast. It's just a matter of being able to put together an entire race. I think he opened up 15-1 over on the DraftKings Sportsbook. He's now bet down to 9-1, so it seems like the public has the same general idea here, but he had the fastest car, or maybe a top 2 car at Darlington earlier in the season. Kyle Larson was super fast early on. He had an issue. Then Ross Chastain ended up moving to the field. It looked like he was going to have the car to beat. Ended up wrecking out when he was running up front. But if that doesn't happen, there's a good chance Ross Chastain's probably the best play on the slate, despite that happening. But if you're looking at some of his numbers this year, 7-race sample size at the intermediates and a couple short tracks that I think do translate to Darlington, averaging the second most DraftKings points per race, the best average running position, the best average driver rating, and the most dominator points. And if you're also looking at how he did at Darlington early in the year, like I said, he finished 30th, but he has super fast car green flag speed-wise, but finished 3rd at Dover, and then had an issue at a club where he finished 29th. But I do think Ross is going to be one of the cars to beat here, but really it's just a matter of him putting together an entire race and a clean race, and if he does that, I do think he's going to be one of the top guys to beat. And finally, my number 1 play for the Cookout Southern 500 at Darlington. It's a toss-up. It was either going to be Kyle Larson or Denny Hamlin, but I decided to go with Kyle Larson here. The most expensive driver over on DraftKings at $11,400 and only $13K over on FanDuel, so you get a bit of a discount there. But he's got the best average green flag speed rating at the similar tracks this year. He also has the best average green flag speed rating at the higher tire wear venues as well. And while he did finish 36 at Darlington earlier in the season, he probably had the best car there, but had an issue which ended his day, unfortunately. But he was more than likely going to dominate a large chunk of that race. Even got up front and led some laps early on. Did start on the front row, beat out the pole sitter Joey Logano to lead the laps early on. But he's got tied for the best odds to win this race over in Vegas. If you're looking at the similar track type form this year, with a 7-race sample size, he is basically first or second in most categories, either behind Denny Hamlin or Ross Chastain, and the ones that he is not leading, but does have a win under his belt. Tied for the most top 5s, has the most top 10s, 6 out of 7 chances he's been inside the top 10, and a good chunk of dominator points as well. But this has been a great track for him. I think Kyle Larson gets it together here at the start of the playoffs, and I would not be surprised if he ends up winning this race. So just to recap, at number 5, we have Erik Jones. At number 4, we have Kevin Harvick. Number 3, Christopher Bell. Number 2, Ross Chastain. Number 1, Kyle Larson. All these drivers have either been fast at similar tracks this year or just are straight up good at Darlington. But that is all I have for you this weekend. Make sure you leave a like on the video if you did enjoy today's content. Subscribe if you're new, and feel free to leave a comment down below agreeing or disagreeing with anything I had to say, or if you want to tell us your 5 favorite plays of the weekend, you are free to do just that. Don't forget to follow us on Sunday for the Live Before Lock show, where we break down the entire slate, answer any questions you may end up having. With that being said, I wish you all the best of luck, and I can't wait for the start of the playoffs.